you lost another one.
Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to the second episode of the VIP room, and I'm here with former two-time Super Bowl champion kicker. I'm mostly known from New York Giants. My guy, Lawrence Tynes. How you feeling, bro?
Trent, what is going on, man? I'm feeling great. Appreciate you having me on. I've known you since you were, my God, maybe just born almost. How old are you now?
20.
You're close. Yeah. I mean, I was with your dad like in 01. Yeah.
That's kind of crazy because I forgot you used to play for you. So let's get into it. So I didn't even know that you was born in Scotland. I didn't know that. What was it like living there before you moved into the States?
So, man, listen, Scotland is like where the soccer came from, the kicking came from. And in Scotland, there wasn't much to do except play soccer. That's all, that's the sport. There's not football. There's not other sports, to be honest with you. So soccer was my first love. It was fun. I enjoyed living there. I had a ton of cousins. My mom had like 10 brothers and sisters. So there was a lot of family there. And then my dad was in the Navy. So we got moved to Florida, in 1990. We moved to Florida. So I was 11, like 10 or 11. And then I started kicking footballs like my junior year of high school.
Yeah, speaking of, did you play soccer? What made you want what made you start to play kicker?
So my PE teacher, which you guys will remember from high school football, most of your PE teachers are football coaches, right?
Yeah.
So ours was our defensive coordinator, and he knew I was a good soccer player. He said, "Hey, Lawrence, we need a field goal kicker this year. Would you mind trying it?" And to be honest with you, his name is Mike McMillan. I don't know if he wouldn't have asked me, I never would have done it. So from that day on, I started kicking. So he took me out that day. We started kicking footballs. That was my junior year, and I'm glad he asked me.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of you kicking and stuff, in your high school, while you was in high school and stuff, because I know you went to Troy with OC Muir and stuff. So it's because you played back then, because it's a totally different era from when I played. So what was your recruiting process going through in high school?
Man, it was weird. Y'all probably don't even remember this, but VCRs, VHS tapes. Do y'all remember those?
Yeah, I remember this. That's wasn't around.
Now there's Huddle and all this online digital right. world we live in. So basically, how you would get recruited is you would go to camps, which there were very few of them back then. Mm-hmm. I went to an Auburn kicking camp. I won the whole thing out of 300 kids. Auburn did not recruit me, did not offer me a scholarship, which was crazy because that's where I really wanted to go. But ultimately, what you did when you were, 1995, your dad had one of those handheld cameras like this.
He'll record you
and would film you kicking. The film was so the film you watch to study the opponent. That was okay, but you would literally just go film yourself kicking. Your dad would be out there, and then you had to make 25, 30 VCR tapes and put them in the mail and send them to colleges. So crazy world. I was not really highly recruited, to be honest with you. I mean, I actually even walked on at Troy. So I did not have a scholarship until I got there.
Yeah, that's crazy because now it's all however you get sent stuff to coaches. Being in the stands doing that's kind of crazy thinking about it.
You guys are blessed. Life is easy for you guys.
Yeah, so speaking of you going to church, walking out of church and stuff, because again, we into because I play football in different area, you play football in different area. Like in college, how was the workouts more like way harder, like so crucial back then? Like how was the workouts
Man,
back then?
yeah, they were tough. Like, I imagine y'all had spring. Well, did you guys do spring workouts like in the morning, like 5 a.m. before school started?
Not 5 a.m. We would do it like 10 a.m., nine
Oh, no,
a.m.
no. So those were always the worst. But I always thought like working out in college was crazy. Like if you got in trouble, you had to like run the stadium, like snake
Mhm.
the stands, like with a 45-pound plate above your head. Like you used to have to do like military type. And I get it. Listen, I'm not saying that was better. I think what kids are doing now is better. It's safer. But it was just a different era. I mean, that's really all it was. I'm not. Everyone likes to always say, like even people my age, that we were way tougher than y'all are.
Mhm.
I
Right.
I don't really believe that. I just think y'all are raised differently, so that's all y'all know. Like I don't ever hate on people that were raised different because I do think today's athlete is much, much, much different. But it doesn't mean it's bad.
Can you remember if you can the worst workout you ever been through? Probably the hardest workout you ever do in
Yeah,
college.
I remember. So I was at Troy. So me and our quarterback, it was during off season, so we still had these morning workouts, like
Mhm.
Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday mornings, like 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. It was just conditioning. It was a bunch of like, just the worst stuff you can think of, right? Change the direction, monkey rolls, all that stuff just to get you up, get you going, get you sweating. So me and Brock, our quarterback at Troy, went to New Orleans like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Well, we didn't make it back in time for the workout on Monday. So after the workout, we got back like Tuesday. So for punishment, we had to do Wednesday's workout, and then we had to snake the stadium at Troy. It's not a huge stadium, but it's still big enough with a 45-pound plate above our head for 1 hour. And I remember just like wanting to quit. Like, and I probably did. Like, they just wanted you to go as far as you could. I mean, a 45-pound plate after an hour
That's
conditioning
crazy. That's
and walking and running the stadium is hell. So, needless to say, we shouldn't have stayed in New Orleans, but we were having a blast. So,
yeah. I've never been to a punishment. I'm glad I never have because I've heard some crazy stories about it. But fast forwarding, I think you're still like the career holder in like field goal points and like at Troy. So
yeah, I don't know. I haven't checked up on
yeah,
that.
I think you still are. So like going to the league, I think you was undrafted free agent. What was that process? And then when you finally got picked up, like how did you feel?
So the process was, it was good. Our punter played in the NFL too from Troy. So like we had a pretty cool thing going. So like when scouts would come to Troy and work out the punter, they would also want to work me out and vice versa.
Mhm.
So our punter Matt Allen, he actually played for the Giants in 2002.
Mhm.
Um, it was, we had a lot of, from a small school because Troy was a small school at the time. It was 1AA. I mean, we had a lot of action. Like we probably had like half the league came through to see me and Matt. Neither one of us obviously got drafted, but we were pretty sought after coming out of college. And then I had about 8 offers because I was undrafted, and I ended up picking Kansas City because I thought they had the best situation for me to win a job.
Right.
So
Right.
I went to Kansas City.
All right. Speaking of Kansas City, what is it like going to like your first training camp? Like, what was your thought process going in? So I know,
Well,
like,
I think just getting to the NFL is, I'm from a small town in Florida. I went to a small school, and then I walk in the locker room and like Tony Gonzalez is over there, Trent Green is over there, like Eddie Kennison, and like just eye opening. Like, wow, like how in the hell did I get here? You're just because I'm from a small school. I'm not from a Texas or a big school, Big 12, SEC. So everything to me was like eye opening.
Mhm.
Like nice facilities. They give you all the workout gear you want, right? Like all the shoes you want. Like at Troy, that wasn't how it was. It is now, but that's not how it was when I was there. So it's shocking. It's intimidating, to be honest with you, at first, and then you start to settle down. You get into the practices and all that stuff. So, but yeah, it's obviously a privilege to be there, but make no mistake about it, I was definitely nervous.
Yeah, I definitely feel you.
Right.
How was Well, speaking of nervous, how nervous were you when you had your first in-game kick? Because I know that has to be super nerve. It has to be.
It was weird because my first in-game kick my rookie year was a 63-yarder. So to be honest with you, I wasn't nervous.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, I don't give a damn if I make this or I don't. I don't care. Like, it's the NFL record at the time. I missed it wide left. I had plenty of distance. Your dad was there, so he could tell you the story. It was in Denver. And then so then my first make was in the second half against Denver. It was a 50-yarder. So I was telling your dad, I was like, you think they can get me a little closer next time so I could have like a 30-yarder instead of these 50 and 63-yarders? But no, I think I had the best kick you could ever have as a rookie to start your career off, even though I know I didn't make it because no one in the world thought I was making it. So it was kind of cool to go out there and just bang it. I didn't miss it by much.
Yeah. So, after your first name with the Chiefs, you went back to NFL Europe to play with the Scottish Claymores. Because it's kind of ironic because my pops played for the same team back in the 90s.
Well,
so
your dad coached me in Scotland.
Yeah, I know. I think. So, first, how did it feel? How did it feel to go play back for your country? Go play for your country.
It was awesome. I was I got to go see my family. So after practice, it's like 2 or 3 days a week, I would just hop on the train and go see my grandma and all my cousins and stuff. So I was actually kind of home. Obviously most of our team was obviously on foreign soil, but I felt comfortable. It was fun for me to go back and see family and hang out. But yeah, Scotland, man, you talk about bad weather. God.
Is that bad over there?
It rains like 250 days a year, something like that.
Man,
or 200. I'm probably embellishing. It's probably like 200, but it's always overcast and it's always rainy. So, but no, it was a good time for young players. That's where they used to send players that needed, reps and to get some experience. So I was appreciative that the Chiefs sent me over there.
Yeah. Also, what's the name? I ain't say nothing, but my boy Lucas joined, so I do my Giants podcast with. It's my dog
Lucas. Right? What's up?
What's going on?
Yeah. So we can fast forward just a little bit, because you came back to the Chiefs, and I just want to ask you because I know you played with Priest Holmes, Terry Johnson. How did it seeing those guys practice and playing a game? What was your thoughts about them, and how did you feel about them as teammates?
Man, Priest Holmes was a dude. Priest Holmes is one of the best players I've ever played with. And it's crazy because, you see all these lists anymore, top 10, top 15, best running backs all time. I have no idea why he's not mentioned. I know he didn't play 10, 12, 13 years. I don't even know how many years he played. You guys could probably look that up. But for about 4 or 5 years there, man, he was the best thing in football. Running the ball. He was like LaDainian Tomlinson before LaDainian Tomlinson. I mean, receiving out of the backfield, running the ball. But Priest Holmes I had the privilege of playing with some great players in Kansas City. I mean, him, Will Shields is a Hall of Fame guard. Willie Rofe is a Hall of Fame tackle. Brian Waters may get in at guard soon. Who else was on that team? I mean, there was Trent Green, Priest Holmes, Larry Johnson. We could score. The problem with those teams is we'd score 40, but we'd give up 41. So we could score a lot of points, but we just weren't real good on defense.
Yeah, I feel you. But no, we got to talk about, and this is when I come in because, of course, when you came to the Giants, we got to talk about that 2007 year. That whole overall season,
crazy.
It was such a crazy, how it started to how it ended. Once y'all got to the playoffs and everybody kept doubting y'all, what was the team's mindset going into that?
Man, we were confident. We, I feel like in the playoffs, I think everyone is obviously confident because they made the playoffs. Now, it's a new season. Everyone is 0-0. That's how we looked at it. That's kind of the mantra in the locker room. It's look, everybody's here. Everybody's good. But everybody has a 0-0 record, right? It's win in advance or lose or go home. So, we kind of got hot towards the end of the year. Yes, we did lose that game against New England in week 16, 17, last game of the year. But, I mean, we played them, 38-35, something like that?
Yeah.
So we played the best team in pro football that was undefeated that close. So we had a lot of confidence going into the playoffs. But it wasn't, to your point, it's kind of a weird season. We started off 0-2. We get a goal line stop against Washington in week 3 to keep us from being 0-3. So we're 1-2, and then we reeled off like 6 in a row, went 6-2, something like that. Kind of had another little skid in the middle of the season. But we just got hot, man. We got hot at the right time. I still think, some people will question us as the best team in football that year, but I'm like, we got into the tournament and won it. We just beat an 18-0 team. So
right.
Right.
It's not about the record. Everyone wants to look at how we got in. I think we were 9-7, maybe 10-6,
Mhm.
9-7.
Yeah, I was 10-6.
10-6.
So, then we won 10 games like 2 years later and didn't even get into the playoffs. So,
Right.
yeah, no, it was a good team. It was a special team, right? Strahan's last year. Eli's coming out party, if you will, because people were trying to throw him out, kick him to the moon.
Right.
I think he was very good. And then
True.
we just had a bunch of selfless players. You guys, I don't know, you guys have been in locker rooms. Like, we had some great individual players, but we were so good as a team.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's for sure. So, in the NFC Championship game, I gotta ask because I couldn't go to that game, and I know my dad was there. Of course, y'all was there. How cold was that game? Because we all know,
it was terrible.
Like everybody knows it was free, but like you was in it. So how extremely cold were you in that game?
Man, it's hard to explain. Like, I don't know. It was the third coldest game in NFL history. I don't know if it still is. It might be. But it was minus 27, 28 wind chill, whatever the number is. I mean, it was. Jeez. So I'll give you an example. So usually in it for a game, me and the specialist, you kick field goals on each side of the field.
Yeah.
So we usually do about 10 on each side, something like that. Well, we go out there in Green Bay that day, and we start our process. So we do like a PAT, and then we just keep backing up. Man, we got to like the third or fourth kick, and Jeff couldn't catch the snap. So Jeff Fiegels is my holder, our punter. And I looked at him. I was like, what's wrong? He goes, I can't feel my hands. So I said, let's try it again. So he did it again. Boom, ball goes right through his hands. So his hands were so frozen from being out there. We weren't out there like maybe 10 minutes, maybe.
Wow.
He couldn't catch the snap. So we just had to kibosh the whole pregame warm-up. So I just said, look, let's stop. That's how cold it was. It's hard to explain unless you've been in temperatures like that. Like it was unhealthy, to be honest with you. Kicking was hard. Like everything we did that day was hard. Like snapping was hard. If you handled the ball, it was hard. Like snapping it, holding it, kicking it. But again, the Packers had to play in it too, so we don't use it as an excuse. But no, it was definitely hard.
Yeah, for sure. Because in that game, because I gotta ask a nervous question again. Because I remember, I think in that game you missed 2 field goals before the game-winning field goal that we had. So, what was your feeling that last kick for the game winner in overtime? Like, were you super nervous or like was?
No, I mean, I made 2 in the first half. Mm-hmm. I missed 2 in the second half. So I'm 2 for 4. I'm like, man, this is the toughest conditions I've ever played in my life. Like, it was so hard to kick. I was not nervous. I mean, I know that people probably say you're full of you know what, but man, it was just about starting my kick, a little bit further to the right, and letting the wind move it a little bit, which I did. And I knew we had kind of an operational issue on the last kick. The one I missed earlier from 42, 43, something like that. I just missed it a little left. I didn't kick it poorly. I just didn't play it right. So I knew I could get it there. So when the 47-yarder came up, I mean, that was kind of one of my things I was really good at. I never let misses bother me. Like, if I miss, so what? I move on to the next kick. And to me, that's what kicking is in the NFL, is like kicking in college, kicking in the NFL is, it's not how many you make in a row. It's like, what do you do after you miss? And that's kicking. Because if some guys keep missing and they can't shake it, and then they get cut or they lose their job in college. I think NFL kickers, good college kickers, are the guys that can compartmentalize misses. Like, you're going to miss sometimes. You just got to move on from it.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And that, what's the name? Let's say we have the upset, beat Green Bay, and then just the whole, of course, got the Super Bowl. Just like that whole week, the Super Bowl weekend. Like, how did it feel? Like, before even the game started? Like, how
crazy? It's crazy. Like, I mean, like I said, I'm from a small town. I went to a small college. You only see this stuff on TV, and then me and your dad had a pretty cool moment too. Like before we went out, I remember this. Because I've been with your dad at this point like 6 years, like off and on throughout my career. I was with him in Kansas City, with him in Europe, back with him in New York. I mean, your dad's the reason the Giants traded for me in 07. I think he probably put in a good word, said, "Look, I know this kid." But before me and your dad went out, it was funny. We just looked at each other and said, "Man, this is a long way from Steps." Steps is like the place where we practice at in Scotland. Mm. And I remember saying that to your dad right before we walked out on the field. So that was pretty cool. It was me and him because we had kind of came up the hard way. Like your dad had to kind of, bounce around and then coach in Europe, and I had to go to Europe, and here we were in the biggest game in the world. But that's what made it sweeter. I always think the journey makes things sweeter, and so us having to go through the hard way, like nothing was handed to us, it's kind of why we shared that moment right there.
Yeah, that was pretty cool because I was there for that Super Bowl. That was really a crazy moment though. So we gotta talk about the other year, of course, the 2011 year. It's like I don't know. It's like of course with the Giants, we had like our best two. I think our best two Super Bowls. We were super underdogs. So
right.
Let's talk about this play first. So Victor Cruz came on the scene. How did you? What was everybody's reaction when he came up to the team?
When he came on the scene?
Yeah, he came on the scene.
Oh my gosh! Like who is this kid? Like when he broke out against the Jets in that preseason game. We had seen him in practice do some things, but like it's one thing to do it in practice at training camp. I've seen a lot of guys go off in practice, but man, he did it under the lights against the Jets. Not against their starters, but still, some of the plays and catches he was making were insane. And if you've ever met Victor, which I'm sure you have, couldn't have happened to a better person. One of the hardest workers I've ever played with. But man, he was talented. It was just one of those kids that just kind of fell through the cracks. I think he played, at UMass, and they weren't very good. And, it's like, not putting in the same category, but like if people thought Brock Purdy was really this good, there's no way he would have been the last pick of the draft, right? So evaluators do miss guys, but yeah, Victor Cruz, that's one of the coolest stories that, from my career that I'll remember.
Yeah, for sure. We gotta what's the name? So like in that season, of course, we make the playoffs. We're super underdogs, and then of course we make it to the NFC Championship game. Now I want to ask you before we talk about that game, like which environment you think? Of course, not because of the COVID. Which environment you think was crazier, the Packers game or the 49ers game?
Oh man, crazier like from a fans. I actually thought San Francisco was kind of crazy. Like in Green Bay, it was just everybody was so cold. Like it was loud, but it wasn't like everyone was just too busy trying to stay warm. But
right, everybody was cold.
Yeah. So San Francisco was wild. It was raining. Candlestick Park. It's this old crappy stadium. So yeah, both championship games were both like weather. Like one was cold, one was rainy and muddy. So
yeah, so of course y'all was both underdogs. We found out to figure out a way to win a Super Bowl. But I gotta ask you this: so, which Super Bowl felt like? Of course, winning Super Bowls, winning Super Bowl. Which one felt better to you? 2007, 2011.
Yeah, 2007. 2007 for sure. I mean, your first one. I mean, it's because of who we beat. Like the Patriots 5 weeks prior had beaten us 38-35. We knew we could play with them. They were talking a lot of smack throughout the week.
True.
Then Plaxico shot back. We wore the black suits on the plane to Arizona. They were 18-0. I mean, that one's hard to beat. Beating an 18-0 team. Yeah, that one was hard to beat. They're all sweet, but nothing's sweeter than that one.
Yeah, for sure. How did it feel? So I think you played one more year after Super Bowl run. You played one more year, right?
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah, but then how did you feel when you retired? Because I know when I had to stop, I was sick. Look, I had to retire a different way. But you just retired because you played for a long time. So like, how did you?
No, feel? Mine was medical.
Oh yeah,
mine was medical. Yeah.
We forgot about
yeah, mine was medical. It sucks because you've been doing it. At that point, I've been doing it, 20 years.
Right.
Since you're 16 years old, I was like 35, 36. And you miss it. You miss the locker room more than anything. I didn't miss like practice or anything like that. I'm not one of those guys. But it sucks, but you just got to move on.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm listening. Go ahead, Lucas.
Is it a different feeling to know that you were the one that brought him to Super Bowl than it was to win the 2011 Super Bowl? Like, is it a different feeling knowing that you're the one that brought him there, winning field goal?
Yeah,
like in 2007.
Well, yeah, I actually did it for both.
He did it for both. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is right. That is. I keep forgetting. Yeah, that is right.
7 and 11. That's just crazy dumb luck, right? Like I was on good teams. I was fortunate to be on good teams, and I made 2 kicks when it mattered. I know I get singled out a lot when people talk about that when they introduce me or talk about my career. But to be in that position twice is pretty crazy. Some guys. There's a lot of guys with NFC Championship game winning kicks. I shouldn't say a lot, but I think it's like me, Gary Anderson, Garrett Hartley kicked one for the Saints, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a handful. Oh, and Matt Barr, how could I forget, for the Giants in 1990 or 86? I can't remember which one, but Matt Barr also has one. So there's 4 or 5 guys, and to think I have 2 is pretty humbling, but it's wild. It's just I was on good teams. I had good teammates, good coaches.
Yeah. What's like the after fact of knowing in your mind that you're Super Bowl champions?
It takes a couple days because you play the game, the energy's up here. You're on adrenaline. You don't really sleep that night, and then you fly home. And then if you remember this, the ticker tape parade in New York, right? Yeah. That's the coolest thing. That's when it really hits home, is when you go back to New York City and you're with all your families and your teammates and the coaches and your wives, and you get on these floats and you go to downtown Canyon of Heroes, New York City, and there's like 5 million people like throwing stuff out of windows, ticker tape, confetti. That's crazy. That's when it really hits you that you just did something pretty important to the city. And then obviously, I have these 2 reminders behind me every day that we won it. And so, yeah, it's humbling, man. The older you get, you get more reflective. I'm 45 now. So it's like, it's mind blowing. Like it's crazy that we won 2, and to think about, how, not kicking the Giants while they're down right here, but like they haven't even sniffed one in the last 10 years, like haven't even been close. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it just goes to show you how hard it is to win it. Even if you're really good, right? Like, I mean, we've seen so many really good Chiefs teams and Eagles teams and Cowboys teams and Niners teams. Niners haven't won it yet.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking on the current Giants, how do you feel about our Giants right now? We just lost San Fran. How do you feel about it?
Well, I kind of covered the team a little bit. I do a podcast with the New York Post. I am not as down on this team as everybody else because I feel like I'm a realist. We beat the team we should have beat. It obviously should have never been that close. But we lost to the 2 best teams in pro football, in my opinion. The Cowboys, listen, that game got off to a horrendous start with the block kick and then all the other stuff that happened. It was pouring down rain. The Cowboys were going to beat the Giants on their best day.
Right.
The Niners were also going to beat the Giants probably on their best day. But I'll say this about the Giants. Had they have gotten a pick early on that first drive, which they should have gotten, and I don't know whether that turns into a field goal, turns into a touchdown. And then it's, they get that 2-point conversion with whatever it was, 10 minutes left in the third quarter. That's almost a 17-14 ball game.
It is.
So I'm not as down on the Giants. And listen, they're doing that without Andrew Thomas, without Aziz, without Glowinski, without, whoever.
Saquon.
Well, yes. Sorry, how could I forget him? Saquon missed. And so I'm a believer in the Giants. Listen, I think they've just kind of had a really, really tough schedule. I think the first 6 games are tough. And if they can get out of there 3-3, that would be a huge home run. I'm thinking they're getting out 2-4.
Me too.
And then they kind of go on a little win streak. but by no means am I down on the Giants at all. I just think they've played some really, really good football teams, and people need to recognize the Cowboys and the Niners are probably going to play in the NFC Championship.
Yeah,
Right.
facts. Yeah, what do you think is the ceiling for the Giants this year? If it's max at 10 games.
Yeah, I think something like that. I can see them. I have them kind of winning. I have them at 9 wins going into that last game at Philly. And the reason I didn't say they're going to win 10 or because I don't know if Philly needs that game by then.
Yeah.
They may or may not. I think the Giants are going to need it. And I think, the Giants could win it. But I also don't know if 10 wins gets in the playoffs this year either. So we'll see. But I think they're a 9 or 10 win team. I think the Giants are better than a lot of people think they are. Here's the problem, too, you guys, is they've been on national TV with these losses. That's the problem.
We have
Dallas game.
Games.
Yeah, we're not
we
hiding
go back next week too.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're not hiding on. We're not hiding on Sunday at 1:00 somewhere, in market
or advertised.
So we're on national TV. We've had a stinker, and then I thought they battled. It wasn't enough against the Niners, but by no means am I down at all on the Giants at all. I think they can beat Seattle. Listen, I'm going to pick them to beat Seattle.
They're going to have to.
I say they're going to have to. That's true, and I think we're going to win anyway. So,
so
what do you feel about Daniel Jones?
Let me ask this real quick. So,
go ahead.
In the 2022 draft, you obviously announced the second round pick for John Michael Schmitz.
Yeah.
How was that experience going into that and just being able to announce a pick in the draft?
Well, that was cool too, man. Again, I'll keep referencing the small town kid that just had a dream to play pro football. What it's done for me and opened up a lot of doors in my life. For the Giants to call me and ask me to do that, it's pretty cool. I live in Kansas City, so it made a lot of sense. But doesn't mean I wasn't nervous. I was nervous going up there because I was like, this is this kid's shining moment. I do not want to mess up his name. I don't want to mispronounce it. And they don't give you a lot of time. So when you're in the back, Devin Hester was in front of me. I remember him coming off. You're in this little room and it shows all the draft picks. So I know when Devin was up there announcing the Bears pick before me, I'm getting the Giants pick. So I know so you can study a little bit, if it's a really tough name, and they give you phonetic spellings if it's hard. So I kept waking up the week of the draft with nightmares that I got this really hard name to pronounce and I messed it up. So when I saw John Michael Schmitz come across the board, they're like, here's your pick. I was like, yes, because it was a pretty simple name to pronounce. And then I did want to bring some energy. So I came out, brought the juice. I had Dave's on my shirt and I wanted to have fun with it. And so I did. And looks like we got a hell of a player too, by the way.
Yeah, he's playing fantastic. I really like.
Is that the guy you wanted in the pick in the second round?
Yeah, it was either him or Hyatt. It's crazy that I said that in the little documentary that the Giants did, and I'm like, how did we get Hyatt in the third round? That was wild.
That was crazy.
Yeah, but how do you feel about quarterback Daniel Jones?
I love him.
I was like, he's a great guy. He's a great guy.
Yeah, you just think he's a great guy. You don't think he's a good quarterback?
No, I think.
Okay, hold on. You just said most people that say that think he's not a good quarterback.
No. I'll be the one that be having the cake for him all the time. You can ask.
Do you? I just don't get into it with people because I'm sick of it. Here's the deal: you're either on one side of the fence or the other.
Right? Yeah, you'd be so.
So don't waste your energy or your time. Anyone that knows football, like me, you played it at a pretty high level. You see it. Only haters would say he's not good. He is good. Now, has he had a weird situation with bad coaching and bad coordinators? Yes. Did he miss some throws last night? Yes.
Yeah.
But Patrick Mahomes missed some throws last week too. So we're not holding him to this elite standard. He's a good quarterback. I think he can be elite. This team just has to play some together. There's some new pieces on offense. I think they're going to really get going, here towards the middle part of the season.
Yeah. For sure. I got to show this one in the comments. My boy Riddell, he said, I need Lawrence Tynes to say that Eli Manning is an undisputed Hall of Famer and underrated. How do you feel about that? When people how do you feel about that?
Yeah. Eli Manning he is. I mean, he's won 2 Super Bowls, 2-time Super Bowl MVP. The thing people will say about him is they're going to go back to his regular season record. I think quarterback wins and loss record is the dumbest stat in football.
Oh wait,
because
you don't
I think he's exactly 500, right?
Yeah, he's
exactly.
You don't think wins is a QB stat, right? Do you think wins is a QB?
I don't think wins and losses are a quarterback stat.
Yes.
Because the reality is, like they showed that thing last night, that Daniel Jones is 1-11 on primetime football. Yeah. Have you seen the teams that have marched out there on those fields?
Let's say nobody keep it consistent.
It's always Cowboys and Eagles.
They only put New York on TV because they know 10 million people are going to watch them. So even when they were really bad, they do it to generate a revenue and money. But man, I just think, and they do it with Kirk Cousins, right? Everyone has fun with it on social media, how bad he is on primetime TV. But
right,
I think it's a silly record. So Eli's whatever 500 record to me is irrelevant. Just look at what he did in 2 playoff runs, and he's a Hall of Famer. That's good enough for me. Those 2 playoff runs.
Yeah, I feel you, Luke.
Yeah. So there's a big debate going on between like turf and regular grass. What are your kind of thoughts on that? Like, what do you think the best field to play on?
I'm partial. Well, as a kicker, I want to kick on turf all day, every day. Yeah. There's nothing better than a great grass field, but if you play in Kansas City, Cleveland, anywhere up north in the wintertime, those fields suck. The grass turns to sand and dirt. So give me turf, man. I don't know enough about – that's a good question, Lucas. I don't know enough about the science behind it where they're saying everybody gets hurt on turf. And
right.
I mean, you think about the Pittsburgh Steelers-Browns game the other night. I mean, there was like 7 people got hurt. That was on grass.
Yeah.
Football is just a very, very dangerous game. Like there's no else to say about the game. It's very, very dangerous. So you can play it in the parking lot. Like football is a dangerous game. And people are going to get hurt whether you play on grass or turf.
I feel like it might be kind of like a cop-out situation where there's kind of like trying to find a reason for why these players are getting injured.
Sometimes. I think grass. I think players feel better playing on grass, like
right.
Your bones, your joints. Like if you've got good grass, but that's just impossible to keep growing in New York or New England. I mean, if you go back and look at New England before like 2004, it was a mud pit. It was the worst field in football. The Giants used to have grass up until like 2001. Man, those fields in November, December, and January, it was embarrassing. Like, it's mud. Like, you can't keep grass growing in those parts of the country. So, there could be some truth to the injuries, but who knows?
Yeah, man. Luke, you got anything you want to ask me?
I think I'm all good.
I say, yeah, because I know you got to head out soon. I said we about to hit the 40-minute mark, so that's really all I got for you, Lawrence.
I appreciate it.
So I appreciate you really for coming out. Appreciate y'all that's all tuned in.
Are you guys on Twitter?
Yeah.
You don't do Twitter, just Instagram?
I mean, yeah, I do. I have my Twitter. Let's see.
You got to promote your show on there.
Yeah,
we're on Twitter. We're on Twitter.
Yeah, because
make sure you guys follow me, and then I'll retweet it. I mean, I don't have a ton of the followers. I have like 50,000, but I can send them out. That's not a lot. And like that, I didn't start social media until I got done playing. I just didn't want to mess with social media when I was playing.
I'll make sure I'll do that.
You got to get your dad on here.
Yeah, he's
Is he coming after the season?
We're gonna need to.
He's gonna come on here anytime. I get him anytime, but nah. I said that's really all I got for you. I appreciate you all that came out.
Yeah, man. Well, congrats on this. Yeah, keep at it, and let me help you out if I can. If I can get some people on, you need some phone numbers. Yeah, I've got the numbers.
Yeah, for sure. What's the name? We're gonna talk after we end this. I appreciate y'all for coming out. Make sure y'all like the video, subscribe, and peace.
All right.